People do not always hate loudly. Most of the time, resentment moves in silence. It hides behind fake smiles, delayed replies, forced compliments, and subtle distance. The strange part is that many people who secretly dislike you may never openly confront you. Instead, they study you, compare themselves to you, compete with you quietly, and slowly build emotional resistance toward your presence. This happens more often than most people realize. And the reason is not always because you did something wrong. Sometimes your existence alone becomes a mirror that reminds people of what they lack, what they fear, or what they failed to become. Human beings are emotional creatures pretending to be logical. Most social behavior is not driven by truth. It is driven by ego protection. People want to feel important, valuable, admired, respected, and emotionally safe. The moment your behavior unintentionally threatens that emotional balance, hidden resentment can begin forming beneath the surface. That resentment grows stronger when you continue succeeding without needing validation from others. People become uncomfortable around individuals who seem emotionally independent because independence removes control, and when people cannot control your emotions, they often start trying to control your reputation. One of the biggest mistakes emotionally intelligent people make is assuming everyone operates from honesty. They believe kindness automatically creates loyalty. They think helping others builds strong relationships. But many relationships are not built on respect. They are built on emotional convenience. The moment you stop providing emotional comfort, attention, reassurance, or approval, certain people start revealing their real feelings toward you. They were never connected to your humanity. They were connected to the emotional role you played in their life. This is why some people secretly hate you more after you improve yourself. When you become stronger mentally, calmer emotionally, or more disciplined in life, you unknowingly expose the excuses other people keep making. Your growth becomes evidence that change is possible, and for insecure people, your progress feels like a personal attack against their comfort zone. Instead of becoming inspired, they become defensive. Instead of growing with you, they emotionally punish you for evolving. Most hidden resentment begins with comparison. Comparison is one of the oldest emotional survival systems in human psychology. People constantly measure themselves against others to determine social value. They look at appearance, intelligence, money, confidence, relationships, popularity, and success. Even people who claim not to care are unconsciously comparing themselves every day. The problem begins when someone feels inferior but lacks the emotional maturity to process that feeling honestly. Instead of admitting insecurity, they convert that discomfort into criticism toward you. That criticism usually stays hidden at first. It appears through sarcasm, dismissive comments, lack of support, or passive emotional withdrawal. They stop celebrating your wins, they minimize your achievements. They suddenly become cold after your success. And the more grounded you become, the more irritated they seem. This confuses many emotionally aware people because they expect success to attract support. But psychologically, success often attracts silent competition from people who used to feel equal to you. Another reason people secretly hate you is because authenticity makes insecure people nervous. Most people spend years building social masks. They learn what personality gets approval. They learn how to fit in. They learn how to avoid rejection. Over time, they stop expressing their real thoughts, emotions, and identities. Then someone enters the room who speaks honestly, acts naturally, and does not desperately chase approval. That kind of energy disrupts people psychologically. It reminds them how much of themselves they abandoned just to be accepted. Authentic people accidentally expose performance-based personalities. That exposure creates discomfort. And discomfort often transforms into resentment. People may call you arrogant when you are simply confident. They may call you rude when you are setting boundaries. They may call you distant when you stop emotionally chasing them. Labels become weapons insecure people use to regain emotional control over someone they cannot manipulate easily. There is also a darker psychological truth most people avoid discussing. Some people secretly hate you because your pain did not destroy you. They expected you to collapse after heartbreak, betrayal, rejection, or failure. They expected you to become bitter, weak, emotionally dependent, or permanently broken, but instead, you adapted. You became wiser, calmer, more focused, more selective. Your healing became threatening because it proved resilience they themselves never developed. People often feel comfortable around wounded individuals because wounded people are easier to predict and control. But healed individuals become unpredictable. They stop tolerating disrespect. They stop explaining themselves endlessly. They stop seeking permission to exist authentically. And when you stop emotionally shrinking yourself to protect other people's comfort, hidden hostility starts appearing from unexpected places. One of the strongest triggers for secret resentment is emotional boundaries. Boundaries force people to confront what they can no longer access from you. Maybe they once controlled your time, attention, energy, forgiveness, or emotional labor. When that access disappears, their emotional reaction reveals whether they truly respected you or merely benefited from your lack of limits. Healthy people respect boundaries. Manipulative people resent them. This is why some people become colder after you finally learn to say no. Your boundaries expose their entitlement. They may accuse you of changing, becoming selfish, or acting differently. In reality, you are simply no longer overextending yourself to maintain artificial peace. But to someone who benefited from your self-sacrifice, your self-respect feels like rebellion. Another uncomfortable truth is that people often hate qualities in others they secretly wish they possessed themselves. Confident people trigger insecure people. Disciplined people trigger lazy people. Emotionally calm people trigger emotionally reactive people. Independent people trigger emotionally needy people. The human mind protects itself from shame by attacking reminders of personal weakness. This is why highly driven individuals often experience criticism from people doing less than them. Criticism becomes psychological self-defense. You must understand that not everyone wants to grow. Some people only want comfort. Growth requires accountability. Accountability requires honesty. Honesty requires ego death. Most people resist that process because it forces them to confront painful truths about themselves. So instead of transforming internally, they attack externally. They criticize the person who reflects what they avoid becoming. Social groups also play a massive role in hidden resentment. Human beings are tribal by nature. Groups maintain emotional balance by rewarding conformity and punishing difference. The moment you become too unique, too successful, too independent, or too emotionally strong, some groups subconsciously perceive you as a threat to group identity. Even friends may start distancing themselves because your evolution reminds them they stayed the same. People rarely admit jealousy directly because jealousy threatens self-image. Most individuals want to believe they are good-hearted, so instead of admitting envy, they disguise it as moral judgment. They say you changed. They say you think you are better. They say you became obsessed with success. But beneath those words often hides unprocessed comparison and emotional insecurity. There is another reason people secretly dislike emotionally intelligent individuals. Emotionally aware people notice patterns others try to hide. They observe inconsistencies, manipulation, insecurity, dishonesty, and emotional games quickly. Even when they remain silent, their awareness alone makes manipulative people uncomfortable. Some individuals depend entirely on confusion and emotional control to maintain power in relationships. A person who sees clearly becomes dangerous to them. This is why emotionally manipulative people sometimes isolate or criticize highly perceptive individuals. Your awareness threatens the emotional illusion they carefully built around themselves. They cannot deceive you easily. They cannot emotionally control you the same way, so instead of adapting honestly, they start undermining you socially or emotionally. The strange thing about hidden resentment is that it often intensifies when you remain calm. People expect emotional reactions. They expect arguments, defensiveness, or breakdowns. But emotional composure frustrates people who want control over your internal state. Calmness communicates emotional strength, and emotionally unstable people often feel powerless around emotionally grounded individuals. Silence also triggers people more than most realize. When you stop explaining yourself constantly, people begin projecting their assumptions onto you. Human beings fear uncertainty. If you no longer seek approval or validation openly, others fill the silence with stories about your intentions. Some assume arrogance, others assume manipulation. But in reality, emotionally mature people simply stop performing emotionally for public acceptance. One of the most painful realizations in adulthood is understanding that being kind does not protect you from resentment. In fact, highly empathetic people sometimes experience more hidden hostility because others mistake kindness for weakness. The moment empathetic individuals develop confidence and boundaries, people who once underestimated them become uncomfortable. They preferred the version of you that tolerated everything quietly. Some people secretly hate you because you remind them of guilt they never processed. Maybe your honesty reminds them of their dishonesty. Maybe your loyalty reminds them how badly they betrayed others. Maybe your compassion highlights their emotional emptiness. Human beings avoid internal discomfort aggressively. Rather than facing shame directly, many people attack the external reminder causing it. This is why projection is everywhere in human behavior. People accuse others of traits they secretly fear within themselves. Dishonest people become suspicious easily. Controlling people accuse others of manipulation. Insecure people accuse others of arrogance. Emotionally unavailable people accuse others of being cold. Projection allows people to escape self-awareness temporarily. The danger comes when you personalize every negative reaction toward you. Not every criticism reflects reality. Sometimes criticism reveals more about the emotional state of the speaker than the character of the target. Emotionally healthy people communicate concerns directly and respectfully. Emotionally unhealthy people use gossip, mockery, passive aggression, exclusion, and reputation attacks instead. You must learn the difference between constructive feedback and emotional projection. One helps you grow. The other attempts to reduce you psychologically so someone else can feel emotionally safer around themselves. That distinction changes everything. There is also a phenomenon where people secretly resent those who refuse to participate in emotional chaos. Drama-dependent individuals depend on emotional reactions for stimulation and control. Calm people disrupt that cycle. When you stop feeding arguments, gossip, emotional manipulation, and unnecessary conflict, some people become irritated because your emotional stability removes the game they relied on. Emotionally grounded people often experience loneliness because they outgrow environments built on dysfunction. This loneliness is not failure. It is transition. Growth naturally changes relationship dynamics. Some connections survive evolution. Others collapse because they were built on emotional dependency rather than mutual respect. People also secretly hate unpredictability. If you become harder to emotionally manipulate, people lose certainty about how to influence you. They no longer know which guilt tactics work, which emotional triggers affect you, which insecurities control your behavior. Emotional unpredictability creates discomfort in people who relied on psychological leverage over you previously. One powerful truth many people discover too late is that visibility attracts judgment automatically. The more visible your confidence, success, authenticity, creativity, or ambition becomes, the more opinions appear around you. Human beings judge what they notice. Average behavior attracts little attention. Distinct behavior attracts emotional reactions. This is why extraordinary people often experience both admiration and resentment simultaneously. Social media intensified this psychological pattern dramatically. People constantly compare their private struggles to public highlights from others. This creates invisible resentment toward individuals who appear confident, successful, attractive, or emotionally fulfilled. Even strangers develop emotional opinions about people they barely know because comparison culture constantly activates insecurity. Another reason people secretly dislike you is because you challenge social expectations unconsciously. Many individuals feel safer when everyone follows predictable emotional rules. Stay small, stay quiet, stay agreeable, stay insecure. The moment you reject those unwritten rules, certain people perceive your behavior as threatening, not because you harmed them, but because you stopped conforming psychologically. Confidence especially creates mixed reactions. Healthy individuals feel inspired by confidence. Insecure individuals interpret confidence as arrogance because they cannot separate self-worth from dominance. To an insecure mind, someone who values themselves automatically appears threatening. There is a major psychological difference between people who want connection and people who want control. Connection respects individuality. Control demands compliance. When you begin protecting your identity, opinions, boundaries, and emotional peace, controlling personalities start viewing you negatively because your independence reduces their influence. Some people secretly hate you because they cannot categorize you easily. Human beings feel safer around predictable identities, but emotionally complex individuals confuse simplistic social systems. If you are both kind and assertive, calm yet powerful, empathetic yet selective, people struggle to place you into a comfortable category. That ambiguity creates unease. There is also deep resentment toward people who recover publicly from pain. Society often supports wounded individuals temporarily, but once healing begins, support decreases. Some people unconsciously prefer others remaining emotionally weak because it maintains relational control and superiority. Your healing removes the emotional role they assign to you. This becomes especially obvious after toxic relationships or difficult family dynamics. The moment you stop accepting mistreatment, some individuals act personally offended by your self-respect. They preferred access without accountability. Your boundaries now force consequences they never faced before. One of the strongest psychological triggers for hatred is perceived irrelevance. When people feel emotionally unnecessary in your life, insecurity increases. This is why emotionally dependent individuals sometimes sabotage confident or independent people. Your independence activates abandonment fears and inadequacy within them. At the same time, some people secretly hate your potential more than your present reality. They see qualities in you that could eventually surpass them socially, emotionally, financially, or intellectually. Instead of supporting your development, they subtly discourage it early. They mock your ambitions, minimize your ideas, distract your focus, criticize your confidence. Their goal is not truth, their goal is containment. Human beings are often uncomfortable witnessing someone step beyond limitations they personally accepted years ago. Your ambition becomes evidence they settled too early. Your discipline becomes evidence they gave up too quickly. Your courage becomes evidence they remained afraid. But hidden resentment should not make you paranoid. Not everyone secretly hates you. Many people genuinely support, admire, and respect authenticity. The goal is not becoming emotionally suspicious of everyone around you. The goal is becoming aware enough to stop begging for validation from emotionally conflicted people. Emotional maturity means accepting that misunderstanding is unavoidable. Some people will dislike you no matter how respectful, kind, intelligent, or genuine you are. Why? Because their reaction comes from internal conflict, not objective reality. Once you understand this, you stop exhausting yourself trying to manage everyone's emotional perception of you. One of the strongest forms of power is emotional neutrality. Not coldness, not cruelty, neutrality. The ability to remain centered while others project emotions onto you. The ability to hear criticism without collapsing internally. The ability to recognize manipulation without becoming consumed by anger. People who master emotional neutrality become psychologically difficult to control, and that independence often irritates emotionally manipulative personalities. They cannot easily provoke insecurity, guilt, or emotional chaos within you anymore. Your energy changes when you stop needing universal approval. You become calmer, more selective, more observant. You stop oversharing, stop chasing validation. Stop explaining your intentions constantly. And ironically, that quiet confidence often intensifies hidden resentment from people who relied on your emotional accessibility before. Some individuals only felt comfortable around you when you doubted yourself. Self-doubt made you easier to influence, easier to guilt, easier to manipulate. Confidence changes relationship power dynamics dramatically. That shift exposes who truly respected you and who merely benefited from your insecurity. Another difficult truth is that some people bond through negativity. Gossip, criticism, mockery, and shared resentment create temporary social closeness. Groups sometimes unite emotionally by targeting someone perceived as different, successful, confident, or independent. Understanding this prevents you from internalizing every social rejection personally. You cannot control whether people misunderstand you. You cannot control whether insecure people project onto you. You cannot control silent jealousy, comparison, or resentment. But you can control whether you abandon yourself trying to earn acceptance from emotionally unhealthy individuals. The healthiest people eventually realize that respect matters more than approval. Approval changes constantly depending on social trends, insecurity, and emotional convenience. Respect is different. Respect grows from integrity, consistency, emotional intelligence, and boundaries. You must stop shrinking your personality to reduce other people's insecurity. That strategy never works permanently. Insecure people eventually resent confidence no matter how small you make yourself. Self-abandonment only delays rejection while damaging your identity internally. The strongest individuals are not the loudest. They are the most internally stable. They understand that emotional reactions from others often reflect hidden psychological battles invisible on the surface. This understanding creates compassion without naivety, awareness without paranoia, confidence without arrogance. There will always be people who misunderstand your silence, your confidence, your growth, your healing, your boundaries, or your independence. Let them misunderstand. Constantly defending yourself drains emotional energy needed for your actual life. People reveal themselves over time. Supportive people celebrate your growth genuinely. Emotionally mature people communicate honestly. Secure people do not compete secretly with those they care about. Pay attention to patterns instead of words. Human behavior always exposes emotional truth eventually. Your responsibility is not controlling how everyone feels about you. Your responsibility is protecting your peace, developing self-awareness, maintaining integrity, and surrounding yourself with emotionally healthy people who do not require your weakness to feel strong. The moment you fully understand that some resentment is simply the price of authenticity, freedom becomes possible. You stop performing emotionally for crowds. You stop begging for acceptance from people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop reducing your potential just to keep insecure individuals comfortable. And when that happens, something powerful changes internally. Fear decreases, clarity increases. You begin recognizing hidden resentment without absorbing it emotionally. You see projection without personalizing it. You see manipulation without surrendering to it. You stop measuring your worth through unstable opinions from emotionally conflicted people. Because at the end of the day, the people secretly hating you are often fighting invisible battles within themselves. Your existence simply activates emotions they never learned to process honestly. Their resentment is not your identity. Their projection is not your truth. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. Keep growing anyway.